So Luigi Mangione is being put on trial twice. He's being put on trial in the Southern District of New York in federal court for homicide, and he's also being put on trial in state court in New York for homicide. And the question is, does the fact that he's being put on trial twice for essentially the same crime invoke the protections of double jeopardy? Now, double jeopardy is just one of the coolest words in the legal lexicon. I'm a big fan of the show Jeopardy, although I haven't watched as much as I did in the past. And Double Jeopardy, it just sounds cool. There's movies named after it, etc., etc. But we're going to talk today about what Double Jeopardy is and whether or not it applies to Luigi Mangione. And we will dive right into that. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. My name is Joe Palmetto, Joe the Lawyer. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. I'm trying to grow the channel. On this channel, we cover breaking news in major criminal trials only across the country. I am a criminal defense lawyer. I've been practicing going on 13 years now, and I've had my own private practice since 2017. Doing criminal defense, working on homicides, drug trafficking cases, DUIs, you name it. So when you want to get information, you want to watch some videos on the biggest criminal trials around the country, come to me first. There's a lot of other great YouTubers out there as well, so watch them too, but tune into Joe the Lawyer, practicing criminal defense attorney. And please like, subscribe, comment, and share, trying to grow the channel. So we're going to start by watching this video here out of CBS News that discusses an outburst that Luigi Mangione had in court about 2 weeks ago, where he was screaming about double jeopardy. So let's start with this video a bit.
Luigi Mangione's state trial will begin in June. The judge announced that date in court today, with Mangione's defense team objecting, arguing the federal trial, which is set for September, should go first. 27-year-old Mangione faces stalking charges in his federal case and second-degree murder charges in his New York State case for the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. He has pleaded not guilty to all counts. CBS News legal reporter Katrina Coffin is outside the courthouse. Katrina, Mangione had an outburst in court too. What happened today?
Lindsay, this was a rare moment. As he was being led out of this hearing in handcuffs, he yelled out and said, "Same trial twice. 1 + 1 is 2. Double jeopardy by any common sense definition."
And I gotta say, it's never a good idea to have an outburst in court like that. That's the reason you have lawyers, right? So that your lawyers can make your arguments for you. This is a bad look for him. Now, ultimately, the jury wasn't there, but the judge was there and everybody else who works on the case. And, honestly, you want to curry favor with those people. You want them to like you, even if you are on trial for a terrible crime. At least have a decent impression of you in the courtroom. This isn't the way to do it. Let your lawyers make these arguments.
And what he's referring to here, Lindsay, is the Fifth Amendment protection, double jeopardy, where you're not supposed to be punished or prosecuted twice for the same offense. And he has these 2 trials going, state and federal. Now the state one has been scheduled to go first. His team is saying there is a double jeopardy issue here.
Can you tell me more about that argument and whether it will have any bearing here?
So he has a stronger argument in New York State court if the federal trial goes first to claim double jeopardy. There has to be an analysis here, but under New York State law, you both can't be prosecuted for the same offense twice, but also you can't be prosecuted separately for 2 offenses based on the same act unless, and then there's all these exceptions, Lindsay, where we'd have to compare the elements of the offenses and they'll have to do a more thorough analysis there. But that would only happen if the federal case went before the state one.
And so I think that's what his lawyers are getting upset about, is because they want the federal case to be scheduled first. And I'll get into more detail about exactly why they want this, but let's finish this video, because right now my understanding is actually I believe the federal case is scheduled first. So the lawyers are getting what they want, his defense lawyers, in that respect.
Now, what the judge in the state case says is that he says the federal government reneged here, that they had claimed the state could go first, then they tried to get this federal trial in and preclude the state from going. He feels very strongly that the majority of the work here was done by the state and that the state case should go ahead of the federal trial.
Do you expect that Mangione's attorneys will appeal, or is this June date hard and fast?
They are absolutely going to push against this. They've made that very clear. As Karen Agnifilo, his lead attorney, was leaving court, Lindsay, she said, double jeopardy is meant to protect people, and they're using it as a weapon here. It's unfair. Even in court, she told the judge they're going to try to pursue this double jeopardy claim and fight against this, because she says it's such a burden. They're going to be preparing for a federal trial that's currently supposed to have jury selection starting on September 8th. And they have a rigorous schedule before that, jury questionnaires, all of the pretrial things that happen.
Oh, so I understand now. So the federal case is scheduled in September of this year, and the New York State judge is pushing the state case to trial for June. Sorry, I got my years mixed up. So right now the state trial is happening first.
Have to happen. And then at the same time, as of now, they'll have this state trial starting. Now, the only thing that could also change things here, Lindsay, is in the federal trial, 2 charges were recently dismissed. One of them carried the death penalty. We don't yet know if the prosecution might appeal that, which could end up postponing the federal trial.
Okay.
They really have a pretty big interest in having the federal trial go first. And if you got a state court judge that's giving you a heck of a time, and he's trying to push the state court trial to happen first, my advice, what I would do, is try to fight that battle as hard as I can, even at the risk of, okay, there's going to be appeals on the federal trial or whatever. Like, no. Like you have to try to fight to get that state case to happen after the federal trial. So let's talk about why. What is double jeopardy? Double jeopardy is in the United States Constitution. Basically says that a person cannot be tried twice for the same crime, and it is to prevent abuses in the legal system where, let's say that somebody is put on trial for murder and they're found not guilty, and then later on some new evidence maybe comes up or something or this and that, and then the state wants to put them on trial again. Basically, the Constitution says you cannot do that. However, there is this very interesting concept that honestly I looked into it when I wanted to talk about this, but I didn't know that much about it previously. And it's essentially called the dual sovereign doctrine. Okay. So the dual sovereignty doctrine. And what the dual sovereignty doctrine says is that if you have 2 different sovereigns, 2 different government bodies, 2 different government entities that are prosecuting you for the same crime, it does not invoke the protection of double jeopardy. So double jeopardy exists in the United States Constitution and it exists in the state constitution. And the way the United States Supreme Court has interpreted this document is that if, let's say, the state of New York takes you to trial and you win the trial as the defendant, as the accused, and you are found not guilty, then the state of New York can't turn around and prosecute you for the same crime. But guess what? The federal government can. Because it's a different sovereign, and because it's a different sovereign, different entity, they can prosecute you for the exact same crime, even though you already went on trial for that crime in state court. And I know I have a colleague who had a case, and again, it wasn't my case, so I didn't look too much into it, but had a client who was prosecuted in state court on an arson charge. He won the trial, and the federal government turned around and then prosecuted him on federal charges, and he won that trial too. He had to beat them twice. So only after beating the state and then the federal government will he truly get the protections of double jeopardy, because double jeopardy allows these separate sovereigns, which to prosecute, which frankly I think it's unfair. I just don't know how that's fair. For them to get two bites at the apple. I really have to dig into the case law and read about this, but I think it's ridiculous. Now, it doesn't happen that often. I've had a lot of cases that were filed in state court, and then the federal courts will take over, and then the states will drop the case, okay? And then they'll prosecute federally. But I've personally never had a trial where my client was tried in both state and federal. And what I was reading is that essentially the United States government has some policies where they really don't seek it except in very special circumstances, or they interpret it through these policies. Now, I don't know exactly what those policies say. So it doesn't happen that often, but it can. And in my opinion, probably what it breaks down to is when they really want to nail somebody. And that's like what happened in that arson case. People died in that arson case. They really wanted to nail this guy. And that's what's going on with Mangione. They just want to nail him. They want to nail him to a wall. So they're trying him in both state and federal court. And it's kind of hard to blame them, but it really does seem fundamentally unfair to me that can happen. If the crimes are like a little bit different, I can understand. If they're different crimes, but you're being tried for homicide in both, and it is a form of homicide that he's being tried on in both the state and federal system. I just think I don't think that's fair, but the case law is apparently very well established. So that's something that, something to know, right? If somebody is prosecuted and wins in federal court, they could still turn around and be prosecuted in state court, and double jeopardy would not apply. Do we truly think? I'd love to see. I'd really like to look into the history of this analysis and this doctrine, because do we really think that's what the founders of this country wanted? Now, in that video, what they were talking about is that there might be some protections under state law. There's no protections under federal law. So if the state trial happens first, okay, he'd have no way to then invoke a double jeopardy defense in the federal trial. But if the federal trial happens first, and again, I don't know all these details, and if you guys want me to do a video, a deep dive on this topic, I'd be happy to do it. But essentially what that reporter was saying is that the state of New York, if the federal trial happens first, then the state of New York may actually not allow the second prosecution, even though the United States Constitution allows that second prosecution. The state of New York has a statute. They wrote specific law for their state that may say different. It may say that he cannot be tried a second time if he wins the first time. So this is a huge battle. Now, what she's saying, it's a huge battle that they're going to want to have the state court case second. Now, what the reporter was saying is that the judge is like, well, the stateies, right? Your state people, whether it's the state police, or there were Pennsylvania police involved in this, but New York State Police or local Manhattan, New York State Police Department, they put together the majority of the investigation, and then the feds are just coming along and using the same evidence in the federal case. So he's saying, well, the state case should go first because the stateies did all the work. that's an argument, but we all know the real reason is just a lot of people view Mangione. I mean, a lot of people love him, but a lot of people view what he did as an absolutely heinous crime, and I do think it's pretty terrible here. Innocent until proven guilty. Innocent, okay, alleged. We're talking allegations here. I'm a defense attorney, but if the allegations were to be true, they look pretty bad. So I think that is probably why the state court judge trying to railroad him, because he wants to have the state court case first. If he were to lose that case, or let's say Mangione was to win that case, the feds could still prosecute him. Whereas if it happens the other way around, the state authorities may not be able to prosecute him because the state of New York has greater double jeopardy protections than the federal government. Exactly what that statute says, what those protections are, I don't know. I know in Pennsylvania that if the subsequent crime, if somebody goes to trial and their crime has 4 elements and they're acquitted, they cannot be prosecuted again on a case that encompasses those 4 elements or less. Then if they were going to be prosecuted again, it would have to be a new criminal charge that does not. So instead of 4, it would have to be 5 elements, like an extra element there that would change the analysis. I've actually filed a motion on double jeopardy before, and before we got a decision on it, the case settled. So it's a very interesting concept. It's very cool sounding. There's a lot of movies about it. Mangione may get railroaded, but now we understand the importance of why he needs his federal trial to go first. Because if he were to win the federal trial, he may be able to bar state authorities from trying him again. Whereas if he were to lose the state trial, they'll get a second bite at the apple in federal trial. And the second bite at the apple, so what happens very often in criminal cases is the defense has their best shot the first time, because the prosecution may not know or see all the weaknesses. They don't know exactly how the case is going to hit yet, okay? When I say hit, I mean with a jury, like how's a jury going to view it? Well, if you go to trial once and the defense wins, the prosecution, if they get to try them again, and this happens a lot when you have mistrials, right? Where for some legal reason or insufficiency, even though the person was found guilty or not guilty, or I'm sorry, that's wrong. A mistrial is when you have, in Pennsylvania, you have 12 jurors and they all have to be unanimous and they cannot come to a unanimous decision. Okay. That's a mistrial and you have to have a second trial. Or there is something legal that happens that says to the judge at the end of the trial, whether the person was found guilty or not guilty, if the person was found guilty, okay, the judge may declare a mistrial because of some legal deficiency. So you can have a second trial after there's been a mistrial. And the understanding is that the second trial favors the prosecution because they're able to shore up any mistakes that they made, and then reasonable doubt gets a little bit harder for the defense to hit. And the longer mistrials, because there's been cases that have had 5, 6, 7 trials, okay, the longer that goes on, it just builds up and the prosecution gets stronger and stronger and stronger each time. So if Mangione was to lose, if he was to have the state trial first and he was to, let's say, win, then the federal prosecutors would learn from the mistakes of the first trial, shore them up. Maybe, they might not be able to, but shore them up, and then they'll be able to win the second trial. And again, that doesn't always happen, okay? But it's just the general knowledge, and this is true, I think, and the statistics would bear this out, is that on a second trial, on a retrial, the odds the prosecution wins slightly goes up. It starts to favor them more and more. So this is a huge battle that Mangione really, his freedom could hinge on whether or not he wins it. So it'll be interesting to see which trial happens first. We are right now on a rocket docket for the state trial. So stay tuned between February and June. I'm sure his lawyers are going to try to get that pushed back. But I will be covering it every step of the way. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. This is a new channel trying to grow. My name is Joe Palmetto. I'm a practicing criminal defense lawyer in Pittsburgh, PA. Please like, please subscribe, please do everything you can to support my channel. Let me know if you want that deep dive on Mangione in the comments. All right, everybody.